Time now for Ask Mike, and joined by the one and only Mike Irwin. Mike, so happy to have you back. I know you're going through a little bit of a health scare, but wonderful to have you here. You're a legend. You're an icon. How many years have you been covering Razorback athletics?
50.
Did you think this would be home whenever you got here?
No.
No, but it's funny. Hey, I married an Arkansas girl, and I never thought whenever I'd come here I'd come back, but so happy to be back. Speaking of me, what did you 2010? I'm just a young kid. You see me from afar. You're working at the station. What were your thoughts? Did you give me you're a teddy bear, but you're hard to warm up to, Mike.
I walked in here for the first time, and you got to remember that was the first time in 36 years I hadn't been the boss. Yeah. I came over here just to work. I had reached a point. Al Petrino has talked about how he really reached a point where he didn't want to be a head coach. He wanted to be the offensive coordinator. I just wanted to be a reporter and an analyst. And that's how they sold me on the job. I don't have to go to any meetings or make any decisions. So I come in here, and I'm just meeting everybody, and here's Trey Dare over here. And I'll be honest with you, seemed a little distant at first. I was like, what is this guy not like me? Whatever. But then
I felt the same way about you, Mike. I felt the same way about you,
we're
my
probably getting
man.
the same vibe off of each other. But after a while, you realize it's fine.
Hey, you're awesome, man. Always respected you. Like I said, such a legend, such an icon. Arkansas, so lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you here on Ask Mike, so let's get into it. First question this week coming from Cajun Hog, who asked, with 2 weeks to go, does this team really look that much different and that much better than it did a year ago? Seems like you media guys are pushing that notion. Convince me that is not BS. Look, Mike, we don't really get all that much access. We only get such a small portion of the practice. But what they're telling us, the coaching staff, they
That's
really
right.
seem to like what they see.
And what are you going to do, dispute something you don't see? I wouldn't try to convince anybody that they're going to be better, but I will tell you what I've seen and what they've said. Excuse me. And right off the bat, and everybody talks about this, year 2 for Taylen Green under Bobby Petrino. You just got to know it's going to be better.
Yeah.
But let's look for evidence that it's better. All right, let's start with the fact that they ended up with virtually none of the wide receivers that contributed last year on this team. So it's a wide open thing. And if you go back to last summer, what was everybody talking about? Who's going to be the next Andrew Armstrong? Got to find that guy. And what do we find out 2 weeks after 2 weeks of August camp? There is not one guy. And you know why there's not one guy? Because Taylen Green last year was new in the system, unsure of himself, and he was out there looking for guys that he was familiar with. He wasn't running the offense. He wasn't going through his progressions. Oh, there's Andrew Armstrong. Oh, there's Isaac Tesla. I don't want to throw to him. I'm going to throw to this guy. He's not doing that now. And the reason I know that is you started off, first day of August camp, they're talking about, Omega Blake. And then they're talking about this guy. And then the next thing you know, it's another guy. And then another guy. And another guy. And it's always different. It's because he's throwing to everybody. And I think that's the biggest change you're going to see. Now, there's also this. There was in that second scrimmage, there was a 91-yard touchdown run by Mike Washington. You know what set that up? It was a checkoff. It was a checkoff. Okay. Taylen Green spotted a defensive alignment in the A gap that he thought he could take advantage of, and he checked that off, and it went 91 yards. He's not doing that last year. So Bobby Petrino has said this is what's going to happen. This is what he's doing. But then when you actually see these things happen, that's what makes you believe they're going to be better. Now, on the other side of the ball, they've got more depth at linebacker, and that's going to be the strength of the defense. And that two things happen with that. You got better run stop when you've got linebackers that can back up a D-line, but you've also got better blitzing. And they're going to move these guys around a lot. These linebackers are going to move, especially Sorey. He's a guy that proved last year you can move him around and he's going to get to the quarterback. So I think that's the strength part. The secondary was a problem last year. They brought back 2 or 3 solid guys from last year, but they brought in a lot of transfers. They've gotten bigger. They haven't lost any speed, and they're really happy about that. We haven't seen the defense just give up a lot of big bombs. It's happened a few times. What Sam Pittman ended up basically saying, though, was we haven't come up with enough turnovers. And that's definitely one of the things you look for on defense. The weak spot on the defense is the defensive line. They don't have enough depth. I think they're solid at the 2 inside positions and on the 2 edges, but you can't play those guys a whole game. You got to substitute. And right now, that's where they don't have it, and they don't have experience, but I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah, they got to find a way to generate some more pressure. I think they were 111th nationally in turnover margin a year ago. Want to go back to one thing you said there, year 2 under Bobby Petrino, when he was the head coach here, 2008 to 2009. Granted, the talent got a lot better because it was year 2, Wright, Childs, Kobe Hamilton comes on, DJ Williams, et cetera. So they developed some more talent, and Ryan Mallett. But what do you remember about how different that offense was in 09 to 08? Because it seemed like it was night and day.
Yeah, it got better, and then it got better the next year. It got better actually every year. Every year that he was, and he was his own offensive coordinator, whether they called it that or not.
He was a play caller.
And so the point is, every year that he was here, it got better. And it's just a no-brainer that the offense is going to work better this year. This team will be better. The question is, will they win more games? And that I can't answer that because the schedule is tougher. But here's the other thing. He said, convince me. Why do you have to be convinced of something? I've never understood that. I don't understand fans that want to sit here and have the season all mapped out before it ever starts. What about just letting it happen? That's what I love about it. I love, and I'm not just talking about Arkansas, I love being able to sit here and look at the whole picture of college football, the whole picture of the SEC, and I know 2 or 3 games in, some of the things that are being pushed right now are not going to be true. We're going to find out some things. There's going to be some teams that aren't as good as they were supposed to be. And maybe Auburn might turn out to be a lot better than people think they are. There are just things that are going to happen, and I love sitting back and watching it so that I can look at all the experts, and it's not just media experts. Fans like to make
the media picked this team 14th in the SEC.
Right.
Preseason.
So a lot of it is fans. A lot of it is fans. I'm setting myself up as an expert. This is what's going to happen. This Arkansas team is trash under Pittman. It's not going to be any good, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you end up right. Maybe you end up wrong. So I'm going to try to convince you. Pay attention. Figure it out for yourself. The information is there.
All right, question number 2, already somebody you mentioned here. I think this is going to tie into that. This Arkansas football team missing a marquee running back, a 12 to 1,500-yard rusher. I don't see much changing without a player like that. Do we have one? So Mike Washington, Mike Irwin getting a whole lot of love here preseason. I believe Bobby Petrino compared him to Nile Davis, who was an absolute stud for the 1 year that he shined when he was healthy here. What do you think about it?
First of all, I don't think it has to be a 1,500-yard rusher. What I agree with is you got to have a lot of yards per game rushing. If you look at Sam Pittman's best team at Arkansas, 2021, you know what that team did? They averaged 240 yards a game rushing. 2 years ago when they won 4 games, it was down to 160. Last year it was up to 180. If this team wants to win 8 or 9 games, when it's over, I think they've got to average over 200 yards a game. Doesn't matter if it's one guy.
It's a big number.
You know, you can have Taylen Green be a part of that. You can have, anybody that's coming back, that's in there. They got 3 solid running backs. I believe Mike Washington has grabbed this job. Maybe he gets up 600, 700 yards, not 1,200. But the point is, the number you look at is how many yards per game rushing do you average. If it gets up over 200, I think they got a chance to be really good.
Good thing or a bad thing if Taylen Green is the leading rusher on this team? Because, hey, if he's out there, he's Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, he's going to run for 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 yards. That's great, but what if that number is something more modest? Probably means you didn't have a bell cow running back.
Maybe, but if you go back to 2021, guess who was the leading rusher? KJ Jefferson. So you don't know for sure. The point is you got to have the yards. And they had 3 other good running backs that all had good numbers, 500, 600 yards. And it all piles up. The point is you've got to have the ability, for instance, if you've got the lead, don't punt at the end of the game. Take the ball and go down the field and burn out the clock.
Throw to score, you run to win. That was always that classic Bobby Petrino kind of line. One thing I see in here, Mike Washington, that 91-yard touchdown run he had in that scrimmage on Saturday. Keep in mind, though, Mike, that was against the second-team defense. He's gashing up this defense. That good on the offense, bad on the D.
Here's what I haven't seen yet because I wasn't there. Unless you see the play full, not some little ISO shot of it, but unless you see him within the entire offense versus defense, how quick is he? How fast is he? He was asked, what his 40 time was, and he said he hadn't done a 40 time since what, junior high or something. He didn't care.
Maybe they didn't do that in New Mexico State. I don't know.
But we don't know how fast he is. We don't know how quick he is. These are things we're going to see once they start playing football games.
All right, question number 3 from Hot Dogger says, just listening to Travis Williams talking about the last practice, he mentioned there were ongoing communication problems with the defensive line. There's time to correct it, but I'm concerned this could be a mirror of last season.
Yeah, and that was over a week ago. And then you throw in this scrimmage, and I know you were a little bit skeptical when Sam Pittman announced no good on good.
Yeah, and in fairness, all I mean by that, maybe that was planned all along. But just from the outside, when I don't have access to it, you mean to tell me your first-team offense carved up the first-team defense, so now it's like, hey, let's pump the brakes on this. Let's get the defense some better looks at it.
He didn't really explain it specifically. So it could have been a little bit of that. It could have been a little of, okay, we're about to head into the week before game week. Now, next week, it's all about game prep. But this is the last week where, to me, you polish, you refine, you go back and look at mistakes. You look at the 2 scrimmages, you say you did this wrong, you did that right. And maybe he wanted to pump that offense up a little bit, pump that defense up a little bit. So maybe that's why he did it. The point is, right off the bat, the number 2 offense goes down and goes on a long scoring drive against the number 1 defense. Not good. But they weren't pushed out of the way. There wasn't some big dramatic touchdown pass or anything. That drive was kept alive by 3 penalties. And Pittman talked about correcting mistakes. I think that's one of the things that hurt them the most last year. They had some defensive mistakes that if they don't make those mistakes, they could have won maybe 3 more games. And suddenly, you win 10 games instead of 7, it's a totally different deal.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about a 9-4 season. I think the climate around Sam Pittman right now would be completely different. Moving on here, a Hob Hog says Coach Pittman relied quite a bit on Barry Odom's experience during games when he was there. Then after Odom left, it seemed Pittman became unsure in managing some game decisions. Does he rely on Petrino that way right now? Now I think in history, Mike, to me, Arkansas coaches have got in trouble whenever one thing happens. They have really good coaches, and they replace them with not so good coaches. Brett Bielema, classic example right there. I think when Pittman left, he got into trouble. It was Kurt Anderson? Is that who was here? Just completely lost the offensive line there. Same thing kind of with Sam Pittman. Hey, Barry Odom, he's got head coaching experience, great handle on the defense. Kendall Briles, innovative offensive mind, everything's clicking with KJ Jefferson. Then things kind of change whenever some new bodies got in here. Maybe he's got it back now.
I think maybe so. I do think he went through a phase of a couple of 3 years where he was trying to get his staff right. This is a good staff. I really believe it is. But the point of that question, and this is to me one of the biggest misnomers of this whole Pittman thing, and it started because I remember the press conference where it started. It was one of the first Zooms we ever had because it was during COVID, early part of COVID. And the team hadn't even started to work out that spring yet. In fact, they didn't have spring football that year.
Yeah.
They started working out in July. So this was way before that. And Sam Pittman casually mentioned one day on one of these Zooms that he and Odom walked every day all around the edge of campus. And he said, we talked a lot about game situations. And he said, I was picking his brain. If we're in this situation, what would you do? But people got the impression that he didn't know what he was doing. He was trying to lean on this guy.
He's just leaning on his experience.
Well, and what they left out was that Barry Odom was asked about this later on, and he said, look, we did have these discussions, but he had no problem disagreeing with me. He didn't just sit there and go, gee, what should I do here? Yeah. He would go, okay, we got this situation. What would you do? Okay, here's what I would do. Sam Pittman's problem, the perception that he's indecisive, comes from the fact that he's too dadgum honest. He should have never admitted, if you're sitting there trying to decide to kick a field goal or punt or whatever you're going to do, don't tell the media that you were confused and you weren't sure, and so you call timeout. Just don't talk about it, because that's the way they're going to interpret that. I just don't think he's this indecisive guy that's standing around over there going, gee, I don't know what to do. every coach who's ever lived, including Nick Saban, has stood out on that sideline at one time or another and went, I'm not sure what to do here.
Of course.
But Saban doesn't say that. He doesn't say, I wasn't sure what to do. That's Pittman's big problem. He's just too dadgum honest.
The question was about Bobby Petrino there. And one thing that I've noticed in getting over to practice, and I know you there for a handful of dates as well, extremely organized. And in college football, you do have to be organized. You got a finite amount of time with these kids. It's not like the NFL. But to me, no wasted motion, running to drills, very calculated. Does this make sense? It looks like a Bobby Petrino run offensive practice.
Yes, it does. And I do believe this. I believe Sam Pittman basically lets Petrino run his offense. I don't think he calls timeout.
Head coach offense.
Yes. In other words, I'm not going to come over here and get in your business. You do what you think you should do with the offense in this situation. Doesn't mean he wouldn't ever question it, but I think he's smart enough to know this is one of the best offensive coordinators of all time. Even when he was a head coach, his great value was as a play caller. Mm-hmm. And he has said many times he was always happier as an offensive coordinator. I think he's much more well-rounded this time doing that and not having all those head coach responsibilities. And I think Sam Pittman is smart enough to leave the guy alone when Arkansas has the ball and let him make these decisions during timeouts.
Yeah, and this is one of my memories from being back here, that 2010 season, how prepared Bobby Petrino is. Like that play script, the games that stand out. The Georgia game on the road, you remember the 4th and 1 call to Chris Gregg? Exactly. And then the very next week, the Alabama game, that opening drive. To me, my takeaway was
unbelievable.
What he saw something midweek or a month before, like, I got this, we're going to score right out of the gate.
That's still the loudest noise I've ever heard at Reynolds Razorback Stadium on that wheel route to Wingo. I mean, it was just amazing.
He made Nick Saban's defense look bad. He embarrassed him on that script.
He did. So I don't have any problem sitting here and saying that, yeah, Sam Pittman lets Petrino run his offense.
All right, question number 5 here. J-Hog wants to know, with Robinson and Carmona being the starters on the left side of the O-line, what is your best guess on who will start on the right side? I can tell you one dude who's going to be over there, and he's blocking out the sun. That would be Shaq McCroy at right tackle.
Yeah, right now he's running 2. Question is, how long does it take him to get there? Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure. But right now, that's the way it stands. Look, Marion Harris has that job right now. Does he keep it? Maybe he keeps it the whole year, but maybe they share playing time. It depends on how quickly Shaq comes on.
Been a lot of Shaq and Kobe together.
Yeah, and then Kobe Branham, he's the left. He's going to be. He's definitely the right guard. Mm-hmm. He's definitely the right guard, and I think he'll stay there all year long unless he gets hurt.
You know, one thing you always hear about this offensive line, Mike, man, are they big. Can size ever be a problem? Because sometimes, just from my purview here, sometimes size is another word for slow. Not that, offensive linemen have to be the best athletes on the field.
But what this offensive line brings to mind is those 2 offensive lines, 2 straight years that Pittman had here when he was under Brett Bielema, because he had big athletic guys that could move, and a bunch of those guys went into the NFL.
Multiple players in the NFL. A couple of them are first-round picks.
Yeah. So I don't know if this one's going to be that good, but hopefully, because that's what everybody's been saying. How can Sam Pittman be the head coach of this team and you not have an outstanding O-line?
Me as an outsider, I wondered the same thing looking at this program. Man, how are their protection issues these last 2 years? This guy at Georgia was regarded as the best offensive line coach in the country.
And I can't answer that question, but it does look like he's kind of figured it out right now. We'll see.
If one thing I know, they will be big. They are massive. They're bigger than most NFL lines.
And he has said they're more athletic, and that's what he had when he was here under Brett Bielema.
All right, our next question here: which position group? This is from WV Hog Fan. Which position group has surprised you the most this fall, and which group needs some improvement? I would not step on your toes here in any way. I really like what they're doing at wide receiver. It's a whole new group, and they are impressive. They're old. Mega Blake and Raylan Sharp. They're Monte Harrison, only a sophomore, but old in a different way. Well, they're experienced, and it seems like they got some talent.
They got all these transfers. And when you get transfers come in, you don't know how that's going to work. What is that going to look like? Just because you're good somewhere else doesn't mean you're going to come in here and fit in immediately. And that was the surprise to me. Because, again, as I said earlier, you start camp with people talking about 2 or 3 guys. And then all of a sudden you find out, well, who's this guy? Then the next, well, who did that? And I'm looking at all the numbers, looking at the video. Well, who caught that? And I'm having to look up the roster, you know. And so that was the biggest surprise is the depth. I think they're at least 2 deep at every position, the 2 wideout positions and the slot. I think they're at least 6 guys.
Does the Clint Eastwood, in our own Clint Eastwood here, Mike Irwin, the get off my lawn guy, does that bother you that that's what college football has become? That, you know, who's looking at the roster every 5 minutes trying to figure out who's who because nobody stays for more than a year or two?
I've adjusted to it.
We've changed the fabric of college football.
But I don't like it, and the fans don't like it. They're just living with it because what option do you have? It's like, look, Trey, if I go to Walmart and I'm used to buying a certain product, I like this brand of ketchup, and I go to Walmart and they go, we don't carry that anymore. You know what I do? I go to another store and get it. But you can't do that with college football.
You a Heinz guy? I'm a Pittsburgher, so you better be Team Heinz here.
Well, the point is, you can't do that with college football. No. There's only one version of it. So that they have, I'm telling you, the people that run this thing have taken advantage of the fans because they've changed it and they've said, what are you going to do about it? You still got to watch it. That's the way it is.
Look, the transfer portal's been good for the sport, but it's also damaged, you know, what the sport used to be. So somewhere in between there, Mike, I think there is a balance. It can do good for the sport.
Hopefully these 2-year contracts we're hearing about under revenue sharing will eliminate a lot of that. At least you're going to get a guy for 2 years.
All right, next question here from Lanny. He says, a few weeks ago you were pushing Antonio Jordan, the freshman wideout from Warren. He's possibly a breakout receiver at Arkansas his freshman year. It looks like he's dropped off some. What happened? I don't know if that's necessarily the case if he's dropped off a little bit or, you know, again, if they're still kind of working in some bodies.
Pittman didn't describe that as a drop-off. He basically said, and look, here's what happened. Pittman goes and watches this kid in some summer workouts, and he's blown away. The big difference between a summer workout and August camp. Yeah. August camp, the intensity level goes up. And I think what happened was all these receivers we're talking about, they all turned out to be pretty good. And so he's just one of the guys out there. And so he, instead of being a name that pops up every day at practice, it's somebody else. Here's what I think. I'm going to make this prediction. He's not going to start. He may not be even in the 2 deep. But he's going to come in 2, maybe 3 times this year when nobody's expecting it, and he's going to make a huge play because he's that athletic. Yeah. And he could do better than that. He might, through that, earn a starting spot. I don't expect it because I still think it's tough as a true freshman if you got the kind of depth they've got.
He's a jump ball kind of guy. He's got a big-time body on this. How about this, though? Let's throw it back. Who's your favorite Warren receiver at Arkansas of all time? Jarius Wright, Greg Childs, Chris Gregg, Traylon Burks. Maybe your favorite, and who was the most talented? Could be one and the same, too.
I always liked Jarius Wright. I did. I mean, he just, man, he could make it happen. Yeah. But they were all good in their own way.
For me, it was Greg Childs. Before he got hurt,
yeah,
he was unbelievable. He was really coming on in there in 2010.
What I can't figure out, and I wish I had the time to just go stay at Warren for about a year.
What they're putting in the water
and figure out what are they doing down there? How does this happen? And these guys are a lot alike. A lot of them end up being kind of country guys that come up here and then they go fishing. They're not up here for the nightlife and all. That's what I'm told about Antonio Jordan. I know a guy that knows him.
Fish and hunt.
Said he's not going to be out running around on Dixon Street. He's going to go out fishing. So, hey, more power to him. Keep them coming.
All right, maybe he'll be looking for you. Show him a good time here around Northwest Arkansas, right? Pig's Feet, our next question, asking, what will it take for Arkansas to be a destination spot for football players? I have an answer for this one, and I bet you have the same answer. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, some people would say you got to have more money.
If Texas Tech is getting it done right now, they're bringing in players. Some people talking about them winning the Big 12. Do you see Fayetteville? It's a cool place, man. It's beautiful here. If they can do it in Lubbock, why can't we do it in NWA?
So maybe you got to figure out. Now, look, with revenue sharing, supposedly it's limited, but Courtney and I have gone back and forth on this for a couple of months now. Nobody really knows where this NIL is headed under revenue sharing. And she believes that these agents are going to get around it. So it's still, what kind of deal can you make? And Arkansas's got a problem right now. They haven't been able to generate the NIL money that, like, for instance, a Texas Tech can. Texas Tech has this billionaire booster that is just throwing wads of money at their program. So that's one way you can do it. But the other way you could do it is if you win 9 games this year, then you know what you have to do? You have to win 10 the next year.
There's no better marketing than winning.
You got to get it, and there has to be, Trey, consistency. It can't be 9 wins, 6 wins, 8 wins. You got to start moving up. You got to show, hey, we're at a different level now. Ole Miss has done that. I mean, you got to give him credit, man. They built themselves up. Wasn't that too long ago? They were on the same level with Arkansas. So
they're similar programs. It's a great point. Also, for me, you look at the athletic department, outstanding. Basketball, figured it out. Now, I know there's only 15 guys on the roster. Baseball, figured it out. Soccer, volleyball has flashes. Gymnastics, track and field. Why not football?
It's hard to say. Some people would say they didn't hire the right head coach. Why didn't they hire the right head coach? Well, I can tell you the coach they ended up with was one of the few that even wanted the job. It wasn't like there were people out there beating on the door.
He did want the job. Like, unlike Bielema and Chad Morris,
yeah.
Sam Pittman, this is his dream job.
That's right. And he sold Hunter Yurachek on that idea, that this is the job I want. But there are fans out there saying that's not why you hire a guy. You still got to go get a big name. You got to pay the money. You got to do that. And they, whether he didn't have the money, I just know he got turned down. I mean, he got turned down by Drinkwitz. And Drinkwitz wasn't a big name then. He wouldn't even talk.
And Lane, right?
Huh?
They were in on Lane as well?
Yeah.
When they hired Pittman?
Absolutely. And in fact, they got into supposedly what he did was he ended up saying verbally that he would come.
Kiffin?
Yeah. He gave Yurachek a verbal commitment. And then when Yurachek sent him the papers to sign the contract, he said, well, wait a minute. My agent has said...
Jimmy Sexton, probably.
Yeah. And then it turned into it was going to be Ole Miss all along because they were going to buy him.
All right, time for a break here on Ask Mike. We're going to be right back with more with Mike Irwin coming up next. Back here on Ask Mike and with the one and only Mike Irwin. And Mike, we've got a couple more questions to get to. Hog Redneck says the Big Ten is getting a lot of pushback on its call for 20 or more teams in the CFB playoffs. Is there any traction to this, or is that dead in the water? Look, it's all about money. That's going to be a big theme here in college football, big theme in the Big Trail Nation. I think 20 is way too much, but it seems like they also may never stop.
Well, that's not going to happen now. What will happen is it will progress the way it's always progressed. Remember when it was 2?
Then it was 4.
And then it took forever to get to 4, and everybody hated 4. But then it jumps from 4 to 12. Okay, I'm telling you, 16 is the next bump.
It probably as soon as next year.
Could happen. But when you get to 16, then I promise you at some point it's going to go up. I don't know how much. I don't know if it's – I like even numbers. I think 20 is stupid. If you're going to go, you need to go 24.
I think I saw 24 and 28 is what the Big Ten is pushing for, with
if
7 automatic bids.
And if you wanted to go the ultimate, you'd go 36 because that works out. I think it takes a month to do that. Look, I'm not going to argue whether it's good or not or whether as a fan you should like it. That's your business, whoever you are. It doesn't matter. That's what I'm telling you. It's like what we were talking about before. You know who wants it? The networks want it. You know what? Why the networks will get it? Because the conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten will get it. They can't turn down the money. So they're going to do it. Whether you like it or not as a fan, it's going to be about the money. And it's just a question of how soon do they do it.
Did you feel like 12 was too many? And then after that, did you like 12?
I'm fine with 12, but I can understand why a lot of people didn't want to go there.
I thought going in it was too much. And then I liked it. I thought the regular season games did take on a feel where they meant something, and the playoff games were compelling.
The one thing I don't like is the buys. Nobody gets a buy to me. In my
so then you're 16 or 8.
Yeah, 16 or 8, because you get no buys. I like the fact that in the NCAA tournament, you're just out there. I don't care if you're the 1 seed and you're playing the 16 seed. If they beat you, you're gone. You know, I like the one good thing about adding more teams is that it increases unpredictability. And people have said, no, those other teams aren't good enough. They're not going to do it consistent, but there's going to be a huge upset sooner or later, and it's going to be shocking. Somebody that you think is going to, a Texas, boy, we're rolling, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, look who beat them, so.
What about any ramifications from the automatic bid format? Do you think that would hurt the regular season, some of the non-cons in any way?
No, I think the automatic, look, to be honest with you, I would love if there would be a way that would eliminate committee voting, where you just have a set of parameters and it's just set.
Conference standings, top 4 you're in.
Yeah, it's just right there.
Played on the field.
It's written because they do that in high school. I've always said if high school can do it, who picks? Where is the selection committee for high school playoffs? They don't do that, So, and I hate the committee. I'm convinced those people get in a room, order room service. They're in there eating tacos and whatever they're eating and drinking and doing all this stuff, and who knows what they're going to do. I don't think they take that seriously.
All right, next question here. Cowhog32 wants to know, did you see the AP recently released its all-time college football All-American teams? No Razorbacks made the first or second teams. That seems ridiculous. Did they get that right? What Razorback, if any, deserves consideration for the all-time team?
Okay, here's the problem with an all-time team. First of all, you're talking about All-Americans, and then you're only having 2 guys at each position. Do you understand how many good players can get passed up by that?
Yeah.
That is such rarefied air.
You're talking 22 kids per year, yes.
Yeah, but I'm talking, of all of the great quarterbacks that have ever been in college football, you pick 2? Look who you leave out. So if you're making an argument, this is just me, if you're making an argument which Razorback should have been in there, I can only think of one. Darren McFadden, because he was a runner-up for the Heisman twice, should have won it at least once. He's the only one that good. And then other people could probably come up with names where you'd go, pick him over this guy, I don't know. There's been a lot of great running backs over the years. So you're going to put him among the top 2 of all time? He wouldn't rank in terms of, total yards rushing or any of that stuff. So when you get into that rarefied air, it's not an insult that no Razorback was on that list.
What running backs would have made it over him? Immediately one that comes to mind, he only did it for 1 year, Barry Sanders had the greatest season in college football history. I would think he had, if it was 4 running backs, he had to have first and second team, he had to have one of those spots.
But there's just so many of them over the years. The thing that I'll always think about McFadden was that this guy he had a burst that was, the first time I ever saw it was when he was a true freshman. And he went about 60 on Georgia. And in Georgia, it was a TV game, and Georgia's announcer was a veteran guy. And this guy had been doing play-by-play for Georgia for like 4 years.
Vince Dooley, right?
No, it was a play-by-play announcer. But he'd been doing their games for like 40 years. And he just went nuts. He said, I've never seen anything like that. And you're talking about a guy that's seen a lot of college football. I'll tell you a quick story about D-Mac. I hadn't seen him play in high school. I'd only heard about him. So his team was playing Alma in a postseason game. So I decided to go down there and cover it. And when I got there, it had been raining for about the whole day before that, so the field was wet.
Muddy field, muddy track.
But what they told me when I got there, some of the guys that were just hanging around the crew that works there, they said, Frankie Vines, the head coach, said he watered this field 3 days before that. This field is nothing but mud. Now, it didn't look mud because it had grass on it.
Drained it off. Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, So I'm on the far side. I always shot from the visitor side in any game because you shoot back toward the home stands. You got more people and it looks better in the background. So I'm over on the far side. They come out, they throw a screen pass to him. He catches the ball right next to me, plants his foot, and falls flat on his face. Now, he catches the ball, but he goes nowhere. It's behind the line of scrimmage, so he loses a yard. He gets up and goes back to the huddle. I look over there. The place where his foot was that deep. Standing water.
And I bet they let the grass grow, too.
Yeah. Now, he didn't do much for most of the first half, but there was a moment right before halftime when I'm shooting like this, left to right. They're at about midfield. He gets the ball on a handoff, and he vanishes. I'm going, where'd he go? And I'm panning, and he's already in the end zone. And I'd never seen anybody with a burst like that.
In his Arkansas career, when you think the Darren McFadden game, what is it? A lot of people point to that South Carolina game. There was the National Showcase his sophomore year against Tennessee, another one, the LSU game that year in Little Rock, which they did lose after that 10-game winning streak. He was fantastic in that game. The following year at LSU, pretty much his final game as a Razorback, he was outstanding. What to you is, hey, that's Darren McFadden's
Yeah, that South Carolina game, he was just unbelievable. They couldn't stop him. He just kept coming and coming. And Steve Spurrier's over there going, oh, what is... He had a good sense of humor about it when it was over. But, yeah, he was incredible. D-Mac was incredible. And here's the thing about D-Mac. You know, he was a 4-star out of high school.
Oak Grove, right? No longer in existence, I believe I've been told.
Yeah, 4-star. You know why he was a 4-star?
Because he's a quarterback.
No, because he just never would talk to anybody else. He was like Antonio Jordan.
4-star's pretty good. I mean, he's probably like a top, 30, 40 player in the country.
What I'm telling you is if he'd gone to camps, put his name out there, put a video out, gone on a lot of recruiting visits, he'd have been a 5-star. I mean, he was probably one of the maybe the top 2 running backs in the country that year out of high school, and nobody knew it at the time. I like those guys. If you're a Razorback fan, you got to like a guy like Antonio Jordan who is here because he's not going to go anywhere else. You don't have to worry about NIL money. You don't have to worry about anything. He's going to be here because he's not going to go anywhere else.
Do you really think that's the case? You believe? He has 40 catches, 5 touchdowns as a true freshman.
We'll see. But I'll bet
money changes people.
I bet you he doesn't leave.
Hey, he'll be very endearing to the fan base if he can hold up to that for sure. And hopefully we see some big things from him. All right, next question here. Hill Country Hog says, I've seen a lot of stupid stuff from Eurocheck haters, but the way some of those bozos went after our AD over last week's banana ball event at Baum Walker was total trash. The place was packed for a fun summer diversion. Get over it. Hey, Mike, I think we were talking before the show started. I saw some pictures. Quite frankly, it may have been Hunter Yurichek's. If you would have told me one of those nights they set the Baum attendance record, I would have believed it.
I mean, it was unbelievable. It was like you were looking at a super regional game. And I'm thinking to myself, how does that happen? You explained it to me just a while ago. Explain it, because it makes sense.
Yeah, it's something that's different. And really, it's, the idea of fear of missing out is how I look at the whole Savannah Banana thing. So it was the Party Animals, Texas Tailgaters. So they're all over social media. They're banging out stadiums wherever they go. You see their merchandise everywhere. You see the clips. And people think, well, hey, what's this thing? Oh, I've heard of that. I got to go check it out. Oh, people are spending $200 a ticket. Oh, it's sold out at Fenway Park at Yankee Stadium. I have to go see that. I think some of that charm hit Fayetteville, Arkansas over the weekend.
And I think some of it also was people that just wanted to be outside at an event. You have the whole summer. There's no games. Hogs aren't playing. And maybe this bodes well for the season football opener that even a game like they have to start the season, maybe the place will be full.
All right, next question here. Mousetown, big fan of the show. We always hear from Mousetown on this one. Has NBC or the Golf Channel offered any explanation for its brain-dead coverage of the U.S. Amateur? Mike, did you write that? That sounds like you're writing right there. John Daly II made it to the quarterfinals, and yet for 3 days, it was like he did not even exist. Look, I thought this was a fantastic story. They definitely threw some shade on the kid. I don't know why he wasn't getting shown. But shout out to John Daly II. What an incredible showing, especially there, the match he got eliminated. Birdie's 18, 1 down, and unfortunately the kid matched it, so the match came to an end.
And then that guy goes on in the final and just blows away the competition. If you look, first of all, this is not an event where there's going to be a lot of big names in it. I mean, how many people understand who the best amateur golfers in the country are? Not very many. And if you looked at the gallery, it wasn't real big. It wasn't a packed golf tournament. So to me, if you're NBC or whoever does this, I don't think the Golf Channel does it. I don't think they have a crew.
USGA may license it out. I don't know if the Golf Channel's in charge of it or whatever. But
sure.
Look, people know who John Daly is.
Yes.
And in the 90s, outside of probably Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, maybe not even Phil Mickelson at that point, John Daly might have been the biggest name in golf.
I would have thought they would have done the opposite. Hey, we've got this guy here. This is a hook. Let's show him a lot. And then when he's playing well, why not? And they missed out. I mean, he had some incredible matches, even the one where he lost, where it goes right down to the end. I mean, he got beat by probably the one guy in that field that could have beaten him. And it's a young kid that's just starting out. I think that kid's, was he still in high school?
I don't know if he's going into college or if he's entering his senior year of high school. I think he's graduated, but yes, he's 18 years old. He lost to an 18-year-old kid.
What's going to be interesting to see what Daly does now is every indication is he's coming back for his last year at Arkansas. This will put him on the map a little bit in these college tournaments.
I don't know what your relationship is like in the past with John Daly, because he's so Arkansas proud and he's been around. Want to get your thoughts on this, because one thing that really impresses me, and this is not just this weekend, this is John Daly II's entire career, because he's been on the youth circuit for a long time. Nowhere do you see any shots of the old man. So shout out to John Daly Sr. Seems like he really stays out of his kids' way.
Stays out of his way. They're really two completely different personalities.
They look almost identical.
They look alike, but let me just explain to you. John Daly II is he's a straight up guy. I'm going to go play golf, and I'm not flamboyant. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm not going to wear anything crazy. He's not his dad in terms of his dad's personality, but there is a similarity there. They both have a really good short game.
Talking about John Daly there not getting the coverage, people always in this area, I remember from my time previously and just hear people chirping online a little bit, the Arkansas hate. Oh, ESPN doesn't like us. Game Day doesn't like us. USGA they don't like John Daly. They got something against the Razorbacks. You think it's real, or are people on the internet overreacting?
No, I don't think there's a hate. I think Arkansas gets overlooked in a lot of situations. You know why? Because it's a small TV market. Arkansas's concentration of viewers is in this state.
There's only 2.5 million people in the state.
Yeah, and so when you start looking around and you're a network guy and you start putting games on TV and figuring this stuff out, now Arkansas actually draws pretty well when they have when they're playing well in football, basketball, absolutely, in baseball. But I do think that some of that overlooked comes from the fact that people making the decisions understand you're dealing with a smaller group of people in terms of the fan base.
All right, who do we look back and say has a better career? John Daly II or John Daly Sr.? Now look, John Daly was a star. You see the Happy Gilmore movie, he's all over the place. He won 2 majors. But really outside of those 2 majors, the substance of the career wasn't really there.
Yeah, he won a few other tournaments, but no, he didn't have a Tiger Woods type.
Oh, there's only one Tiger Woods.
Yeah, but I mean, he didn't come close to that. What it mostly was with him was just his personality. When he was in a tournament, everybody wanted to show him because he might just do something crazy. He might say something crazy.
And some of his struggles, his vices, made him way more endearing. We love the comeback. Tiger Woods in 19. You see all that he went through, and the world was captivated by this guy who looked so perfect, yet was just like so many of us that struggle with something on the daily.
Absolutely. When he first hit and hit big, then right after that, we saw the drinking problem. And I remember he was supposedly going to just go cold turkey. And he played this tournament where he had just not had a drink for a week. And he just
Nothing but Diet Cokes.
He had the shakes. He was crying out there. And it made him, people saw him as being vulnerable.
All right, out of time here for this week's Ask Mike, the one and only Mike Irwin. So happy to hop on board with you. That's going to do it. Our time here this week is done.